of the information and reinforced what we said at the beginning, that the knowledge of the early stages of the military campaign is very limited, either deliberately or because it is not available. Here is an Israeli diplomatic source, however, who tells ABC News just a short while ago that all the Iraqi Scud missile sites, we can have a look at them on the map again, which are within range of Israel, have been destroyed or put out of action in some form. That all known, and this is quoting the Israelis now, that all known Iraqi atomic and chemical weapon plants have been destroyed. And one of the things that has puzzled analysts early on as to whether or not whatever nuclear capacity the Iraqis had, they could at least move around in some respects, part of the shell game they played. And if we can go to a map of Baghdad, here is another quote from a very senior source in Israel, which says, no, a city map of Baghdad, if we have one, that the Iraqi parliament buildings and the presidential palace in Baghdad had suffered direct hits. Now you can see the new presidential palace, which is down there on right at the bottom of the screen on the left-hand side. That is on the western bank of the Tigris River, and the parliament buildings are in the same general area, though they do not appear on that map. But while we have that map, let me just for a second sketch out this question of civilians and targets all the way to the left off your screen there, to go out to the ring of anti-aircraft missile defenses and the international airport, which the Air Force would have targeted this evening. On the right-hand side of the river there, downtown Baghdad is extremely
Now, from Action 11 News, coverage of the Gulf War on WHAS-TV.
Good evening, I'm Melissa Forsyth. This is an Action 11 News special report. The war on Iraq continues in its third hour now. Operation Desert Storm started around 7 o'clock tonight, and this is how it began, with American fighter bombers taking off in pairs from Saudi Arabia. They headed north, attacking Iraqi targets in Iraq and Kuwait. American reporters huddled in Baghdad hotel rooms described the tremendous fire show. President Bush confirmed the air assault about an hour ago and said that no ground forces are involved yet. He said the liberation of Kuwait has begun. There are reports that the Iraqi military has now begun to retaliate by firing Scud missiles on Saudi Arabia. A company of the 19th Engineers Battalion, expected to leave Louisville Stanford Field tonight, instead is grounded. Airport sources tell Action 11 News the commercial 747 headed from Louisville to New York was in the sky when the war started. The plane was pulled back because of insurance reasons. Sources say flying the soldiers into war is considered too risky by private airlines. Tonight, the 140 members of that company, consisting of medics for the 19th Engineers, remain stationed at a warehouse at the airport. Many were on a bus when they heard that the war indeed had started.
A lot of thoughts run through your head, you know what to expect, how to expect it, what to do with people, casualties, so sort. It runs through your mind a lot.
Fort Knox will only say that they are working on getting another jet to Stanford Field, possibly a military transport. The reality of the start of the war sent families of the Desert Storm troops looking for comfort from each other. Melissa Swan is live tonight in East Jefferson County with one of those groups. Melissa?
We're here at the home of Jeanette and David Hines tonight, along with several other members of a Louisville Desert Shield support group. The Hines son is a medevac pilot with the 101st Airborne Division. Jeanette, we've seen a lot of hugs tonight, a lot of tears, a lot more hugs. How's everyone holding up?
I think after the initial shock is over, that we're going to be okay now. We all knew this was coming, but when it actually came, it was a surprise.
You've been talking to a lot of people on the phone. You're saying a lot of your support group members are really having a tough time.
They are, but it seems like they're like everybody else. They're sort of getting into it now and relaxing a little bit. I'm sure the emotions are going to go like a yo-yo, just go up and down. And we just pray this thing will be over fast.
Thank you. And there were some smiles a few minutes ago when some people heard reports of the firepower that did wind up hitting Iraq tonight. I'm Melissa Swan with a Desert Shield support group. We'll be with these folks throughout the conflict.
Thank you, Melissa. What we are all doing tonight is waiting for information, watching to see the developments, and Chuck Olmstead is live tonight in Okolona with a man who has his ear on the Middle East. Chuck?
Well, that's right, Melissa. Indeed, most of us have been glued to the sets, but next to me, Charlie Troutman, he's been listening in on the airways, scanning the frequencies, longtime ham radio operator. Charlie, what have you heard from that part of the region?
Well, we talked to a couple of the boys in Israel. They said that they couldn't sleep, so they were up. Of course, it's 4 to 5 o'clock over there in the morning now, almost 5 a.m., and absolutely it's perfectly quiet in Israel. They tell me that their information over there is that nothing in Iraq even got off of the ground to answer the attacks.
Nothing from Kuwait, nothing from Saudi Arabia over there?
Nothing from Kuwait, nothing from Saudi Arabia, and I expect that they're probably shut down temporarily until the hostilities are ended.
All right, Charlie Troutman, thank you very much. I'll let you get back to listening in. This is not the first time for Charlie. He listened as we invaded Grenada and in Panama. He'll be listening throughout the night. This is Chuck Olmstead with a live action cam.
Thank you, Chuck. We now return you to ABC News coverage of the war in the Persian Gulf.
New or budget, can you tell the difference?
I may be a dummy, but I'm not stupid.
Let the truth detector decide. Is that Toyota new or budget?
New.
It's budget. 1990 Corolla Deluxes with air and automatic from $69.95. That Lincoln, new or budget?
Budget.
Why pay the difference if you can't tell the difference?
New. Budget. New.
This Friday, get into Lazarus 14-hour sale. If you like to save money, consider this. An extra 30% off selected clearance. Think about it. Well, what do you think? With an extra 30% off selected clearance and saving store-wide, don't you think you should get to Lazarus this Friday and save? Now, that's something everyone can smile about. Look for the signs and get an extra 30% off at Lazarus 14-hour sale, Friday only. And don't forget to smile.
It's totally an American versus Iraq, and that's why the participation of allies, but particularly Arab allies, is important. The second issue.
My apologies.
Okay, the second issue is, of course, the issue of the whole focus on whether they would try and bring Israel in.
From Navy sources, Bob Zelnick, that 100 cruise missiles had been launched.
We received that shortly before the briefing. General Powell would not confirm that at the briefing. In fact, he wouldn't mention which planes or weapons had been used. But our information is that there was a massive use of the cruise missiles, which probably accounts in large measure for the degree of tactical surprise because of their ability to avoid radar detection and knock out the very facilities that could detect the other aircraft.
Okay, Bob Zelnick at the Pentagon, thank you very much. And not to, again, to make light of it at all, but Admiral Crow did say a while ago that one of the things the military clearly wants to know is whether or not all of the new technology that has been developed since the Vietnam War works, and the cruise missile, of course, has never been tested in battle. But that is a source report, not an on-the-record report, that 100 cruise missiles were launched. They would have been launched from Navy ships in the Persian Gulf. Let's go back to Oklahoma City for just a moment and listen to Admiral William Crow for just a second on what you think of the briefing that we got, Admiral Crow, from the Secretary and your successor in the chair at the Joint Chiefs. East to west, from north to south. Back to the State Department, John McCarthy. Jack.
Peter, several things to comment on. First of all, one of the military observations that you have been kicking around throughout the night, the limited response from the Iraqis. The fact that this attack came at night and that the Iraqi Air Force has an extremely difficult time flying at night may account for at least part of the limited response. Also, of course, surprise. And the point that you were making just a few moments ago about what happens when daylight comes up. Remember that the Iraqis are capable, much more capable, of fighting in daylight than they are during the night. And when they can see aircraft coming in, then they can do the sorts of things that they were not able to do during at night. Even small arms fire can bring down American aircraft if they're coming in low and fast.
And Kuwait, if Kuwait is finally liberated. Britt Hume at the White House with further news. Britt, on how the decision was actually and finally arrived at.
Peter, the White House has been at some pains tonight to create at least the impression that the decision to do this was actually and officially made today. It seems apparent from the scope of this operation that it is something that had to have been set in motion days, if not weeks ago, and the president or the president's spokesman, Mr. Fitzwater, has indicated that the date of it was set according to military priorities.
Very pro Saddam Hussein. Therefore, early this morning in Amman, the capital, John Donovan, what's the reaction?
So far, not very much, Peter, because as you've said, it is early in the morning. I don't think very many people in the country know what has happened. I'd say they're probably about an hour away from waking up and turning on their radios. Jordan Radio has broadcast the news, but only with the sketchiest details, telling its audience that there has been an attack on Iraq and telling them that they should tune in much later in the day for fuller reports. Some people, interestingly enough, are following events here from Israel television, whose broadcast signal spills over into Jordan. Some of those people I've spoken with, and the impression I get, despite all of the opposition that we've heard from Jordanians and Palestinians through these last several months, is that in a way there's a kind of sense of relief. At least the tension has broken, and the great concern that people had here that Israel would be drawn into the war, and then following that Jordan, because it so far has not played out as a scenario, I think that fact alone is giving people some sense of relief.
All around the country, though we will continue to provide the same continuous international coverage from here. Congressman Hamilton, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you for joining us, sir. Your thoughts this evening?
Well, I've been very encouraged by the initial reports of the military action. I find among my constituents, and I'm sure among most Americans, an almost desperate hope that this military action will be quick and decisive. And we all fervently hope that that's the case. The reports indicate it might be.
Do you know anything that we don't, sir? Have you been briefed in any particular way that we have not?
No. I've been here in my constituency in Indiana and will be returning very soon to Washington.
I thought it was puzzling that somebody told me you were in Louisville, Kentucky. I'm glad you tell me precisely where you are. When did you last talk to the president?
Targets were hit, and in the coming days we'll hear about the results. We can be sure that the president said they were going to go for tanks, artillery, and the entire military force that's deployed in Kuwait. I would guess that a lot of targets in Kuwait were hit tonight as well.
James Blackwell, thank you for that analysis. Cliff?
We were talking to CNN's Doug James a little earlier in Amman, Jordan. He was not yet on the streets, but did make mention of the fact that day was about to break in Amman, Jordan. That's where CNN's Tony Clark is. Tony, I see you. You're outside. Go ahead. We have a breakdown? Not there. To who? Where are we going? All right. We have a communications problem with Amman, Jordan momentarily. Instead, we're going to head over to the Pentagon. CNN's Wolf Blitzer has a report for us. Wolf.
Lou, we're beginning to get more reports about the nature of this massive U.S. air assault on Iraq. CNN has now learned that virtually the entire Iraqi Air Force, in the words of one Pentagon source, has now been decimated. In addition, the U.S. Air Force and the Navy bombers have decimated much of the elite Republican Guard in the northwestern section of Kuwait and in southern Iraq. Beyond all of that, there are not yet any reports, any confirmed reports of any U.S. casualties. No reports of any of the U.S. fighter aircraft that may or may not have been knocked down. There are no reports that any pilots or navigators have been lost. All U.S. and allied planes, we are told, at least this preliminary report, have returned safely to their bases, including the A-6 intruders, the carrier-based fighter bombers that actually took off from the carriers, the 6 U.S. carriers. They went to forward air bases in Saudi Arabia. They then, from those forward air bases, took off, participated in this massive U.S. air assault, and returned to those forward air bases so the pilots wouldn't have to take off and land on those carriers. The operation obviously appears to be a great success. according to all indications, the Pentagon performed, at least these initial accounts that we're getting here, brilliantly, with no reports, let me repeat that, no reports of any U.S. casualties.
By the Palestinians, something that we will be watching for throughout the day. Lou, Catherine?
All right, Tony Clark in Amman, Jordan. Catherine?
Describing the bombing raids throughout the evening, throughout the early morning hours in Baghdad, 3 CNN correspondents, Bernie Shaw, Peter Arnett, and John Holloman, live at the Al Rashid Hotel. John Holloman is standing by. John?
Catherine, hello to you. I'm going to go back over to the window because dawn has broken here. Bernie Shaw is with me. We're going to look out and tell you if we can see any signs of any damage after what happened here in the hours preceding. The sun's coming up here this morning, and I must be honest with you, I don't see any signs, but I do smell something. There's an acrid smell in the air.
In Iraq.
And we would be using capabilities that were far more lethal, far more accurate, and far more effective than anything we have ever used before.
America is relying on its massive air power to assure victory over Iraq, filling the skies with the greatest air arsenal in world history. Fighters and bombers they call Stealth, Hornet, Prowler, Tomcat, Weasel, Eagle, Falcon, F-111s, F-14s, 15s, 16s, B-52s, hundreds of planes taking off from carriers in the Persian Gulf from bases in Saudi Arabia, an international armada, including fighters from England, Germany, and Italy. The mission for the first wave of attackers is clear. Destroy airfields, radar, and missile sites. You destroy air collisions and miss targets. But overall, strategists have confidence in U.S. air superiority and know success in the air will save the lives of many soldiers on the ground. Larry Lamont, CNN, reporting.
This is CNN, a network of Turner Broadcasting System.
I'm Susan Rook at CNN Center in Atlanta. We bring you up to date with the very latest on the war in the Gulf.
And I'm Patrick Greenlaw. Here is the latest. War in the Gulf for the past 4 hours. U.S.-led forces have been bombing strategic targets in Iraq. For the latest on what's happening at this hour, let's check in with CNN's Bernard Shaw, who's on the phone with us right now from Baghdad. Bernie?
Patrick, it is all over for now. It is daybreak here, and the city is trying to come awake. People are coming out of wherever they were hiding in shelter. Some people are dazed. Some people are walking slowly. We can report to you that the hotel has permitted the people who ran downstairs to the bomb shelter to come out. So,
as far as the war is concerned.
Well, Wolf, these are some remarkable descriptive terms already being ascribed to the results of this airstrike. The total destruction of any nation's air force, much less one with 700 to 800 aircraft, is a remarkable accomplishment. Killing all of the Scud missiles on the ground before they could be launched implies an incredible degree of the achievement of surprise and shutting down air defenses in the...
From Ankara, Turkey. Thank you. Pat?
Now let's go to Linda Scherzer, who's live at our CNN bureau in Jerusalem for the very latest from there. Linda?
Well, Israeli radio is reporting now that Saudi television has just reported that Saddam Hussein's palace has been destroyed. That report comes from veteran journalist Nikki Gordis, who has been closely monitoring the situation by radio in the Gulf, and he also reports now that Saddam Hussein has appeared on Baghdad radio. He is hearing him now, but we don't know if that is a live or a tape report. In Israel, the mood here is one of relief. The Pentagon has announced that the danger to Israel has passed, and even before the Pentagon made that announcement, a senior Army officer went on Israeli television to say that missile launchers and bases in western Iraq, the bases that had posed the greatest threat to Israel, had been dealt a serious blow by Allied bombers.
In the Persian Gulf, and it's really been very remarkable. Their feelings, their emotions, their tears, their holding hands, and the feeling here has been one of a sense of great relief. And I think that at least the women in this room feel that maybe it will be over very soon. Heather, I think that's what you expressed to me, and you also expressed the feeling that there is a sense of maybe things changing.
Yeah, I think that now that we have actually done something to Hussein, that maybe he's going to get the picture that he made a big mistake in messing with the United States and the United Nations, and that he can't push people around anymore. I mean, what he's put on his people and on the other countries of the world, they're not going to take it anymore. I mean,
Thank you, Heather. I'm going to ask Kim, could you come over here? Kim's husband is serving aboard the Acadia. Come on right up here. Thanks. What was your reaction to President Bush's address?
I thought he did very well in getting across this point and making everybody understand why he's done this and why he did it as quickly as he did. And I think everybody was really behind him.
But there was more to it than that. For a long time, the president had hinted at broader objectives. Tonight, he spelled them out.
As I report to you, air attacks are underway against military targets in Iraq. We are determined to knock out Saddam Hussein's nuclear bomb potential. We will also destroy his chemical weapons facilities. Much of Saddam's artillery and tanks will be destroyed. Our operations are designed to best protect the lives of all the coalition forces by targeting Saddam's vast military arsenal.
In short, the president wants to eliminate Saddam Hussein's ability to wage not just war now, but for some time in the future.
So it would rank as insignificant.
Is there any indication, do you think, that the Iraqis, if they do finally withdraw or forced out, will sort of go out on a scorched earth policy and the Kuwaiti oil fields set them afire?
It's difficult to say, but at this stage they've scorched so much of Kuwait already and taken so many things of value from Kuwait. One has to assume they've taken refinery stocks, refinery equipment, and spare parts. So the rebuilding process will be expensive and reasonably time-consuming.
Mobil, Chevron, and Arco, and Conoco as well, saying they will freeze wholesale prices of gasoline. That's it for now from the CNN Business News Desk in New York. I'm Bill Hartley.
Right now for the very latest from the Eastern Saudi Arabian perspective, CNN's Charles Jaco is there live, and he joins us now with the very latest. Charles?
Yes, good morning, Patrick, from Iranian drizzly Saudi Arabia, where it's about 20 to 8 in the morning. We've just been in contact with Saudi Arabian television to clarify a report earlier. Saudi TV tells us that they are not reporting that Saddam Hussein's palace is burning. They say that the area near Saddam Hussein's palace is on fire, but they have no information that the building that houses the palace itself is burning.
Lisa, you're over here drinking a Coke, kind of relaxed. It's been watching CNN all night here, and your mother works over at Shaw Air Force Base, and you have lots of friends that are over there.
Yes, I do.
Your feelings?
Well, I just wish that they would return home safely, and I'm just praying for them.
You think that the right action was taken by the president?
Yes, I do. I'm behind him 100%, and I have a feeling I know what he's doing, and it's best for the United States.
All right, thank you, Lisa. I'm going to wander across over here to the other side, another table, and talk first with Mike. And Mike, you're a reservist. You haven't been activated yet, but your feeling?
No, sir, I haven't been activated. I'm behind what the president is what he's done, and if I am activated, I'll be willing to go.
A tough night, you think, for everyone, though?
I think it's hard on everybody, but I think that he's doing the right thing.
Admiral Moranville, are you there? Fred, tell us about the capacity for the ordnance on board here. We've got missiles.
Yeah, these aircraft, these F-15 Eagles, will carry very little air-to-air missiles, very few Sidewinder missiles, but they'll carry very large bombs. What we're talking about basically are 2,000-pound bombs. We're talking about laser-guided smart bombs. which can lock onto target. One of these F-15 Eagles, Tom, will carry, just one small airplane will carry as much ordnance, as much explosives as one large bomber did in World War II. And obviously flying at faster than the speed of sound.
And we're going to get more information, of course, during the daylight hours as the intelligence and satellite reconnaissance photography goes over and assesses all of the damage from these massive bombing runs. Here comes another U.S. fighter aircraft returning to a base in Saudi Arabia from its mission in Iraq.
That when they're in the privacy of their homes, even before the war broke out, those Iraqis who have the remotest possibility tuned to the Voice of America or the British Broadcasting Corporation for news, they can rely, as well as the missile sites and the military command centers and the rail lines and the highways, in an attempt to cut off those Iraqi forces which are in occupied Kuwait.
Peter, I could also,
go ahead, Bill.
I could also add to this the feeling that I'm picking up fairly strongly here, that the Air Force and the other flight wings feel they have to continue this mission because there is the suspicion that perhaps the Iraqis are holding back some of their air assets and that they may prepare to use those later when perhaps the Americans tone down their campaign. So that's, to some degree, why they continue to fly as many sorties, and also, as I believe Tony Kortisman pointed out, you don't always destroy your target the first time around. Many of them are hardened shelters, and you have to keep going at them time and time again. So this campaign is far from finished in the air.
No, I'm not fooling. Okay, thanks very much, Bill. I apologize. I got somebody in my ear, and I can only hear half of what you're saying. But there is a pilot writing on one of his missiles for Deborah, and as he walked out of camera there, you could see him mouth when asked that was his wife. A long-established Air Force tradition to write such slogans on your ammunition. I want to go quickly to Fort Stewart in Georgia, where ABC's John Quinones is standing by with some people who have their families in the Persian Gulf today. John.
Yes, Peter, a few days ago here at Fort Stewart, the husbands and wives of U.S. servicemen in the Gulf were telling reporters they were on pins and needles waiting for something to happen in the Gulf.
This battle, that when it is over, you in America would be embarrassed at how you overestimated the capabilities of the Iraqis in the field. We shall see. At any rate, Voices of Americans again. We have been canvassing as this day has continued, and here is a summary of some of what Americans have been thinking from ABC's Beth Nissen.
For weeks, opinion polls have shown strong American support for a strong American response. On the first morning of war, there was, for many, a kind of pride that America had acted.
I feel the president did the right thing. He went over there, and hopefully he'll teach him a lesson.
They'll probably just, through our troops, probably just walk in and take the whole place over.
But many Americans were not so sure.
Well, I was saddened because it's unfortunate that, blood has to be spilled over an issue that should be able to be handled by two men sitting down talking.
On in Iraq and
no.
we do not know what. Just very briefly.
Americans gathered, military families homing in on television screens, trying to absorb the news from so far away that comes so close to home. Americans gathered. The news fired the anger of those opposed to military action. There were anti-war protests in Chicago, in Washington, in Los Angeles, in New York. Americans gathered, many who had not been in their church, their temple in years, and found themselves there today, just tried, a surface-to-air prayer.
Like everyone else, I guess I'm just waiting to see what's going to happen.
Americans waited for the first battle pictures, the first numbers of the lost. And Americans did battle with themselves over what to think about what has happened. Millions of Americans torn by the wish for a quick victory and the wish that it had not come to this. Beth Nissen, ABC News, New York.
A sampling of how some Americans around the country are feeling today. We operate from something of an isolated position here. but we will do our best as the day goes on to involve other Americans around the country and get a real sense of what ordinary Americans are saying, as reflected in the Beth Nissen piece there. We tend on occasions like this to be electronically wired up to the politicians and the military people. We do not know, by the way, when there's going to be another briefing at the Pentagon by either the Secretary of Defense, who hasn't himself had a great deal to say, or the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, who has been somewhat more precise. And it is almost 24 hours since we've had any kind of a briefing from the U.S. military in Riyadh, but military or civilian. In a moment, Barry Sarafin will be along. We'll be back in half an hour.
This has been ABC News' continuous coverage of Operation Desert Storm, the war in the Persian Gulf.